I got to tell you, the more research I do on this day in history, the more information I find, and consequently, today I have more items than I have typically had before. I think for the most part, I'll hit the highlights, and if you want more information, of course, you can click the links below that contain the sources to my information. That said, let's get on with this day in history, September 17th. In 1630, on this day, the city of Boston was founded. In 1776, the Presidio of San Francisco was founded as a Spanish fort. I've been there. That's pretty interesting. Kind of at the base of the Golden Gate Bridge. In 1787, the U.S. Constitution was adopted and formally signed on this day. In 1796, President George Washington delivered his farewell address to Congress before concluding his second term in office. In 1819, the first whaling ship arrived in Hawaii. In 1862, the Battle of Antietam in Maryland took place. It was the bloodiest day in U.S. history. Fighting raged all day as Union and Confederate armies suffered a combined 26,293 casualties. Andrew Rube Foster, father of the Negro Baseball Leagues, was born on this day in 1879. In 1883, William Carlos Williams, poet, playwright, essayist, and writer, who won a Pulitzer Prize for his book Pictures from Bruegel and Other Poems, was born on this day. Here is one of his poems. It's entitled, "This is Just to Say." This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. In 1902, U.S. troops were sent to Panama to keep train lines open over the isthmus as Panamanian nationals struggled for independence from Colombia. In 1907, Warren E. Berger, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was born on this day. In 1908, Thomas Selfridge became the first fatality of powered flight. In 1911, the first transcontinental airplane flight from New York to Pasadena took place. That flight took 82 hours and 4 minutes. In 1916, Germany's Red Baron, Manfred von Richthofen, wins his first aerial combat. In 1917, the German army recaptures the Russian port of Riga from Russian forces. In 1920, the National Football League formed in Canton, Ohio. In 1923, Hank Williams Sr., an influential country singer-songwriter guitarist, was born on this day. A couple of tunes of note that he wrote are Lonesome Blues and Your Cheatin' Heart. And I can hear my daddy singing along with these when they come on the radio. 1927, Charles Lindbergh lands in San Francisco. In 1935, Ken Kesey, author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Sometimes a Great Nation, was born on this day. In 1939, with the German army already attacking western Poland, the Soviet Union launched an invasion of eastern Poland. In 1947, James Forestall was sworn in as the first U.S. Secretary of Defense. And what I'm not saying here is that that name is significant to ancient alien theorist fans. In 1953, the first successful separation of Siamese twins took place. In 1956, the Yanks clinched pennant number 22 on Mickey Mantle's 50th homer of the year. He was a remarkable baseball player, and that was way before steroids came along. In 1959, the X-15 rocket plane made its first flight. In 1962, the first federal suit to end public school segregation was filed by the U.S. Justice Department. In 1963, the television show The Fugitive premiered. I remember that. It came on after my bedtime, though, but I remember it being on. In 1964, Mickey Mantle got hits number 1,999, 2000, and 2001. In 1964, the TV show Bewitched premiered. I have been accused of being Gladys Kravitz, but I'm not Gladys Kravitz. I'm just curious about what goes on in my neighborhood. In 1967, the TV show Mission Impossible premiered. Also in 1967, America got its introduction to The Who on September 17, 1967, when they ended an already explosive, nationally televised performance of My Generation with a literal bang that singed Pete Townshend's hair, left shrapnel in Keith Moon's arm, and momentarily knocked the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour off the air. In 1968, Zond 5 completed circumnavigation of the moon. Zond was a Soviet program, and Zond 5 was the second spacecraft to travel to and circle the moon, and was the first to return safely to Earth after doing so. In 1972, BART begins passenger service. That would be the Bay Area Rapid Transit. Anyway, BART. 1972, BART begins passenger service. In 1976, the Space Shuttle is unveiled to the public. In 1977, Dave Kingman hits his first Yankee homer. Reggie hits 2 more. In 1978, the Red Sox finally beat the Yanks 7-3. In 1978, Begin, Sadat, and Carter signed the Camp David Accord. In 1983, Vanessa Williams becomes the first black Miss America. In 1985, Soyuz T-14 carries 3 cosmonauts to Salyut 7 space station. In 1996, Oprah launched her influential book club. On this day in 2001, the New York Stock Exchange reopened for the first time since the September 11 terrorist attacks on the Twin Towers. This was the longest period that they had been closed since the Great Depression of the 1930s. In 2006, Alaska's Four-Peaked Mountain erupts for the first time in at least 10,000 years. So that's it for today, September 17th. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'll have links in the description to my sources. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And feel free to share this video if you found it interesting. If there's anything you'd like me to go more in depth on, make a comment below. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Come on now, you can do it. You can do it. I know you can do it. Good girl, good girl. Okay. Sometimes they're loose papers and sometimes I put them in a book. Let's see if we can get that all in one shot now. Maybe we'll do it both ways. Okay, let's start that one again. Okay, we already know it's September. Now read it like it's written. Don't make me squeak that pig again.